Hi, I'm Arthur, and this is part 20 of a now 21 part series I'm doing on all the legions of Space Marines. Do you need to have seen the other parts to understand this one? Not really. I did make a Dark Angels video in the past, but this one's kind of going to be its own standalone. So, if you watched any of the other parts, I'd still be happy though. I thought I'd throw you all something new and exciting before I capped off the series with the Alpha Legion video. Or maybe this is the Alpha Legion video and I'm just doing a bit of a psyop. Regardless, this is going to be a bit of an update and just a rehash of the original video that I made. I thought it was proper to come back and do it justice because I started this series so long ago. That was one of my first videos before I even had a format down. And I remember how I wanted to do these videos back then and how I've evolved since. Sure, it's only been a few months, but there's a significant amount of you fuckers now, so like, hi, hello, we're doing Dark Angels again. Stick around to the end of the video and you get a free soft shell taco. To get into it right proper, who are the Dark Angels? Well, they are the best Space Marine Legion. Literally the archetype on how all Space Marines were supposed to be. Born to be the perfect weapons, they had a very unique approach to war, where each legion had their own specialization in terms of warfare. The Dark Angels originally was a legion filled with different sections based on specializations. I won't bore you with the details, but they had this system of categorization that is fucking insane and arcane in the most literal of senses. There were knightly orders, there were chapters, there were ranks, there were suborders, then there were wings. No, I don't know how it's all broken down, but the wings are the easiest enough to understand, each one being used to accomplish a new and fantastical goal. A brief summation of the 6 different wings. First, the Death Wing. Terminators and Terminator accessories, when you choose to become the cover instead of resort to hiding behind it. Raven Wing. White scars, but with black armor and using drive-by pickaxe hammers. Dreadwings, literally the dedicated war crimes division, specializing in radiation weapons and illegal ancient technology like super white phosphorus. The Fire Wing, specialists like infiltration units, duelists, and anything that, although might not seem wholly practical, is actually meant to destroy resolve and morale. Iron Wing, they have the big stuff like artillery, land raiders, dreadnoughts, and the wayward battle automata, which we're not allowed to use anymore. Then we have the Storm Wing. It's the Dude Wing, the wing with all the dudes. Most Marines and standard battle line troops come from here. These 6 wings are often referred to together as the Hexagrammaton because it's 6 wings and it forms a hex. And they like occult whatevers. Dark Angels are confusing but fun, I will say. If you couldn't tell, they kind of enjoy their weird, overly specific categorization of secret info and how they format their entire army. It's kind of fun, I guess. There are some knights in the books that are like, I am Astragliel, 3rd chapter of the Red Circle Knights of Orgoth, Destroyer Sergeant of the Dreadwing, and the other Dark Angels in the room are like, oh shit, I met their knight captain before. It's a little silly, and they are pretty fun. Okay, no segue. You were all fucking waiting for it. Let's talk about the line. So, who is Lion L. Johnson? A prick. Well, at least he was. Back in the day of the heresy and Great Crusade, he was a stern, taciturn man, with a temper so fucking brutal it destroyed his home world. He's a bit of a mythological figure in scope, literally raised by the critters of an ancient evil forest he was sent to as a child. He learned how to fight, but never had good social skills. The planet he landed on was a semi-chaos corrupted world known simply as Caliban. It's semi-corrupted because, if you didn't know, they had gigantic fuck you evil monster lions. My headcanon is like a displacer beast the size of a Clydesdale horse. He banded together the Techno-Knight orders of the world and genocided the majority of the critters of the ancient forests there, becoming the forever king of Caliban and making his adoptive father, Luther, significantly jealous in the process. See, Luther as a character was a human whom discovered the lion, and if the lion had never existed, Luther would single-handedly be the most interesting individual on the planet. But the lion does exist. And now Luther is, in comparison to a man whom by genetic design is supposed to be the most impressive person in a room at any given time. Him and his adoptive father were discovered by the emperor at one point. He was given a legion, and Luther was given an inferiority complex. Said inferiority complex led to him getting corrupted by chaos and wounding his adoptive son in a battle that ended up with the lion, being the sore sport he was, blowing up the entirety of Caliban, being stored on a massive location known as the Rock, probably being taken away by the Jawa things called the Watchers in the Dark. And now we're kind of up to date, or rather, we were. The fracturing of Caliban ended up with a small faction of Dark Angels being formed. Now, this smaller faction is a bit complicated to cover, and it always has been. It's gotten a little clearer in the modern day of the setting, but to put it in simplest terms, Luther was in charge of recruiting new Space Marines. Because he was in charge of that, there were a lot of Space Marines that were under him. When the Lion came back to exact his bloody revenge for their betrayal, Luther ordered an entire army to fight the Lion because the Lion had betrayed them. The Lion had not. So there was this big miscommunication of both of them pointing at each other and saying, "You're the traitor, no, you're the traitor." So when the planet blew up, there were a lot of Space Marines on both sides that were confused as to what actually happened and who was the real traitor. And on Luther's side, there were some who didn't even know that Luther was the guy who fired the first shot. So these Marines disappeared, clad in their black Space Marine armor, and casually were referred to as the Fallen Dark Angels, which became the major obsession of the current-day Dark Angels. They kind of have this vibe that we are uncorruptible, we are the last bastion of the Space Marines, we can never fall to chaos. So to have a large section of their Marines allegedly fall to chaos, they want to keep that secret. So there's entire divisions of the Dark Angels dedicated to hunting down and killing any fallen they find, as well as torturing them until they give any kind of information. In the modern day, the Lion has reappeared. In a weird way, his personality is different, and if you read Son of the Forest, he has this new ability to enter an ethereal forest and pop out wherever there is greenery. But for some reason, each time he does pop out, the planet he appears on always has a fallen Dark Angel on it. It usually ends with him offering them redemption by working with him towards the betterment of the Imperium of mankind, as well as the possibilities to redeem themselves, and so on and so forth. A new faction of Dark Angels has risen from this, called the Risen. He also apparently received a magic sword from the woods that he comes from, called Fealty, which has very Arthurian vibes to it. Wait a sec. Teleports via forest, green armor, unexplained magic, sword, Arthurian myth. Oh, for fuck's sake! My steadily growing aneurysm aside, I find his legion interesting, and his utter contempt towards Guilliman hilarious. See, where most legions were told to break up into smaller chapters, this did not happen for the Dark Angels, for the most part. They made new chapters, of course, following the same level of organization that Guilliman asked for, but there is a Supreme Grand Master, who is in charge of all of them, essentially a Legion Master, so if push comes to shove, all of the Dark Angels' successor chapters will come back and essentially be a Legion again. He isn't a diplomat. He was a soldier, a hunter of men on the battlefield, but for some reason, whatever the Forest did to him to bring him back made him kind, more willing to concede points. Also, unlike Guilliman being put into stasis, he actually had to age apparently the 10,000 years between his stabbing, and he just got older. Still a fucking Primarch, I mind you, but he has slowed down a bit because of it. So in the modern era, the Dark Angels are a force to be reckoned with. They are still shifty bastards, and they now have a Primarch that can just teleport at will to the Forest Gods dimension, which is unsettling to think of. There is a lot of good new lore I'm still reading about, but as it stands, they were a Legion divided, and now they are slowly becoming a Legion united once more. I think the majority of the main chapter still wants to torture the living fuck out of the Fallen, but the Lion is in command now, baby. So I don't think they're gonna get the chance or the choice to. So do you like having perfectly specialized tools for every job under the sun? Do you like having a fucking Primarch at your back you can call in and hit with strength fucking 12? Hey look, a 3-up invuln too. I missed you. Then play the Dark Angels, or their new successor, the Risen, because they're really cool. And after reading more about them in the lore and their new stuff from Arcs of Omen and Son of the Forest, I feel the pull to start yet another Space Marine army. This is not good for me. But what do you think about the Dark Angels? Let me know in the comments down below. Sorry for fucking around and adding a new part out of nowhere, but think of this as just the true part 1 to the series we always wanted. Special thanks to my channel members. I promise your Primarchs will be coming back soon as well. Except you, Blood Angels. Sorry. And until next time, yeah, joke's on you, this was actually the Alpha Legion video. It was a psyop, the Lion is dead, and who came back was actually Alfarius cosplaying as Charles Dance. Fuck you and good night.